right, ladies and gentlemen, we are live. And it's Wednesday afternoon at the Funny Farm. We have Stephanie Rumford with us this afternoon. But before we get to her, I want to thank you for tuning in. You might be at work, sneaking, I don't know. You might be at home, somewhere. But if you're down the street, around the corner, across America, and around the world, we welcome you. We're delighted that you took the time to spend with us this afternoon, and we have a tremendous show scheduled for you. Not only this afternoon, but we're going to have part 2 of this thing tonight at 8 p.m. right here. Same time, same place, just different people. So, this is what we have in mind, and we always have in mind. We have 2 goals. Number 1, we want to bring a smile to your face. If we can just make you smile, even if it's but for a few seconds, we'll be happy. If we can make you laugh, we'll even be happier. Our second goal is to make you just as crazy as the rest of us. And I think we can do that. But anyhow, a lot of people's come to the Funny Farm. Very few have left. We invite you to sit back, stand up, lay down, whatever. Whatever position you're most comfortable in, and enjoy the show this afternoon. Wow. What a tremendous day of broadcasting we're going to have. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends, Romans and countrymen, lend me both your ears, because you're about ready to go on a journey. All right, let me push some of these buttons here and a few over here, and we will get welcome to the George Espenlaub Show and Wednesday afternoon at Funny Farm.
Thanks for having me, George.
No problem. Hey, I guess the first thing we should do is explain or tell the people how this whole thing came about. We was talking about it before we went on air. But I'll let you tell your part, and then I'll tell my part.
Absolutely. I'm kind of new to Twitter, and my father had written a book recently, actually about 18 months ago, and I'm trying to learn how to market and sell it. I'm not in this industry, so it's new to me. So I was just scrolling through my Twitter feed one day, and there you were with, I forget the gentleman's name, that wrote the plantation book, Uncle Sam's Plantation.
Mm-hmm.
What's his name?
Ed
Temple. And I said, that is amazing that that technology can do that's available. I said to myself, you need to get a hold of George and get your father on that show. And so I wrote you a long, involved, detailed letter. And lo and behold, you called me the next day.
And on my end, I was on Twitter the day that she was on Twitter, and I came across this book. And it's called Tobacco, Trust, and Trump. And I looked at it, and I thought, wow, that's interesting. How America's Forgotten War Created Big Government. I thought that is very interesting. I've got to find this man and get him on the show. So I wrote the name of the book down. I wrote his name. And I said, I'm going to do that first thing in the morning. And so lo and behold, first thing the next morning, I sit down and I opened up my email, and there was Stephanie. And I thought, goodness gracious, this isn't a coincidence. I have her father's name, the name of his book, and I was going to go searching for him today. And here Stephanie sends me an email before I had to go searching and lets me know that she is who she is and her father is who he is. And the book is right there. And so it all came about. I call it miraculous. I don't know what other people call it. I don't believe in coincidence. I believe it was miraculous. And so over a period of weeks, we've talked, we've chatted, and here we are this afternoon. And you'll get to meet Stephanie's father tonight at 8 p.m. Same time. I want to say same station, same place, here in YouTube. And that's how it all came about. But first, Stephanie, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, great. I've been working with my father since 1980 in our primary business, which is industrial sales. We service heavy industry and we help them repair equipment at a fraction of time and cost to get them back online and running when things break. We've been at it for January starts our 40th anniversary, and we're excited to be here. We're excited to be successful, and we're really excited about the benefits the Trump economy has had for our customers.
So this Rumford group, if I understand right, if I read it correctly, you guys are one of, if not the leader in your industry. Am I right?
So there's 168 distributors like us for a company called Belzona around the world. I think there's 40 in North America, and we usually land in the top 10 of their numbers worldwide annually. So we're one of their larger customers.
So what, in layman's term, what do you guys do?
So I'm sure you're familiar with epoxies that you use to rebuild shafts and bearing housings, and some of your more common names are JB Weld or DevCon or things like that. Belzona makes the leader in those products. They don't have any solvents in them, so they don't shrink and delaminate from the substrate as they're applied. Now, you want to use this. You want to use good products, good premium products in your steel mills and your power plants that are driving equipment, because they have to be cognizant of their downtime costs. When a piece of equipment breaks or fails, they're looking at, for the steel industry, it's $1 million a day, or can be $1 million a day in profit loss or income loss. So we can help them get back up and running in a matter of hours. Just till they can get to a shutdown, and then we can go in and help them fix it. So we have 100 different products: synthetic metals, synthetic elastomers, synthetic concretes. So if it has a floor, ceiling, or wall, we can repair it instead of replacing it. So I've been trying to get the Department of Transportations to start using us on their bridges because they're crumbling around us. A lot of the infrastructure there, the steel beams and such, are good. The concrete parapet walls are failing. We know how to fix that. When they build new things, we have coatings that you can put on them to make them last for 30, 40, or 50 additional years. For instance, the city of Cincinnati's pump program. We started working with them in the early 80s to rebuild their pumps because they didn't want to buy new ones. And so we've extended the life of that equipment for 40 years. So that's 90 years now that equipment has on it. So that they've saved a lot of money on capital replacement projects.
So you guys are out of where? Dayton, Ohio?
Just south of Dayton, Ohio.
Wow. And you've been at this since 1980.
That's correct.
Where do you distribute to?
So that's a great question. We cover 5 states out of this office: Southwest Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, Southern Illinois, and Kentucky. And in that territory, we have 15 independent sales guys and a few employed sales guys. We also have a sandblasting and coating company that goes out and does the work for us. So it's a pretty good size organization. I think total we're about 35 people now.
Wow.
So, yeah, pretty nice.
And the economy is just ticking along, just chugging along,
Booming.
and you guys are hard at it.
We are. We are. Usually in economies like this, the facilities will go and buy their new equipment and they will replace it. Usually we do really well in economic downturns to make equipment last longer. However, this time, everybody's fixing everything and buying new also. I've never seen anything like it. It's so much fun.
So, so you would say in all the years you guys have been in business, this is perhaps your best time.
I do believe so. I do believe that's a fair and accurate statement, and I, my hat's off to the people that are pulling the cords to make all this work. I mean, I know it's taken a lot of people up there in DC to make this economy do what it's doing, and we're appreciative.
When you mentioned the bridges, you're absolutely right. Our infrastructure is just crumbling around our ears, and we've seen cases where it has literally crumbled, and tragic deaths have taken place because of it.
Mhm.
I don't know, but here in Delaware, it don't seem like there's too much going on to fix, particularly bridges, uh, and those types. You got much going on out your way?
So they came through here a few years ago and redid I-75 from Dayton to Cincinnati. They added another lane. They rebuilt bridges. It was beautiful. They put this really nice, pretty coating on the bridges so that it was like yellow, kind of really a pretty color. But what happens when they seal concrete like that? The concrete still needs to breathe and cure. Even if it has a 28-day cure cycle, it still needs to breathe. And by sealing it like that, they've locked in the moisture, and the moisture, in order to get out, is going to crack and crumble the parapet walls. And I'm watching that. Those bridges aren't 5 years old. One of them has a big crack down the center over the support beam. And I drive by it all the time and looking at it thinking, why won't you guys fix this stuff properly? Why can't you fix it properly? And I know the answer to that is budget. And our products are typically 18% more on top of the project than the competitions. But I know that we wouldn't have to do it again if they would let us at it.
Are you having any luck with the Department of Transportation?
Not with the government agencies. We stick to private industry mostly.
Yeah, those bureaucrats, they can't get out of each other's way. Peter don't know what Paul's doing, or else Paul's sneaking over there and getting some of Peter's stuff, and it's just a real mess when you get working with those bureaucrats. There in Dayton, are you guys at a industrial complex, or
Yes, we are.
are you?
Mm-hmm.
And there's other industries near and around you, and so on and so forth?
Yes, there are. Yes, we have a nice neighborhood. We moved in here 7 years ago. We built this building and moved in after having been in a 3,300 square foot facility for 30 years. We decided that it was time to expand a little bit. So we built this building and have been here for 7 years now. Yeah, and it's a nice industrial park. And we have an airport right next door too, a regional airport.
Wow.
Now, if I could get a plane and a pilot, we could come to Delaware.
That's right. That's right. We don't have no place to land, but they give you a parachute. No, we've got some small airports. We got one up there in Wilmington. We got one over here in Georgetown. They'd get you down on the ground, and we'd love to have you. We really would. Your dad's still working.
Yes.
He's still traveling.
Yes.
He's still on top of the business. Is that right?
That's correct. That's all correct. He's 78 years old. I call him my freak of nature. he acts like a 50-year-old, and he has the memory of a kid. He remembers everything back through his childhood. He went to grade school or second grade with Pete Rose, and he remembers stories about that back in Cincinnati, when he was a kid.
Wow.
He's amazing.
Years and years ago, you brought up Pete Rose. Years ago, I guess about 1970, 71, whatever. We were doing a job in Cincinnati, and we stayed in a motel on Riverside or Riverfront Road or whatever it was. But Mama Rose had a bar and a restaurant down the road from the motel we was staying at, and we used to frequent that quite a bit, pretty near almost every night. So when somebody mentions Pete Rose, I automatically think of Mama Rose. His mom was the owner, the proprietor of that place. And we was working right down the road from these huge tanks that we was working on at the time. And we were lining the inside of those too. So when you said that, that brought back memories, and I can still see that road, those tanks, that motel, and Mama Rose. Ladies and gentlemen, that didn't cost you a nickel. I just thought I'd throw that out there.
What company were you working for doing tank linings? Because we do that now too.
I worked for a company in Altoona, Pennsylvania called Lithcoat. And then later on, and I'm pretty sure you probably know, later on, Union Tank bought them out. As far as I know, they're still Union Tank. I guess they're still Union Tank. But that's, we lined the inside of hoppers and tank cars with rubber and epoxies and, all that good stuff, blasted them and did all that good stuff.
Interfab took over for them, and then Lithco has a restoration company still here in Cincinnati.
Okay.
They're a customer of ours too, because you can use our products for making the gargoyles on the buildings that have broken. We can cast off a good one and form other ones. So
wow. All right, let's talk about your dad a little bit.
Okay.
And his project. When did he start writing this book?
It would have been 2 years ago, October.
2 years ago.
Yeah. What happened, and I'm sure he'll get into this, but ever since he was a little kid, this scrapbook here used to sit under the couch at his great-grandfather's place. And him and his cousins would grab it, and they'd open it up, and they'd read all these articles. I don't think I can manage this very well, but there's all these great articles in here about this topic, the tobacco wars. And one of his uncles, or one of his great-grandfathers, was the villain, the Knight Rider, and the other one of his great-grandfathers was a tobacco buyer. So he was 6 years old when he started reading these stories, and then listening to the oral history of his family too. And again, he doesn't forget anything. So his uncle, Tom Kinney, passed away a few years ago, and they were putting his aunt, Joanne, into assisted living. And there was the estate to break up. And so he says to Joanne, Joanne, who got Tom's guns? And Joanne said, well, Jimmy, your cousin Joey got them. And he says, Joanne, what happened to all the furniture? Because there was a lot of this furniture that came on flat bottom boats down the Ohio River when they was being settled. So she says, Jimmy, the girls get the furniture. And he said, oh, Joanne, who gets the Knight Rider scrapbook? And she said, Jimmy, I'm giving it to you. So I sat here in our office for a couple of years, and I said, this is a really good story. We need to figure out how to write a book about this, because you'd love to tell the story, Dad. And so I was talking to some friends at a party, and the guy recommended a ghostwriter to me. And so I called the ghostwriter, and I said, my dad's got this story he needs to tell. Can you help? And so he sat down with Jim. It took them, they sat down in here in the office on Mondays for 6 months, 2 or 3 hours a day. The ghostwriter guy Josh did a great job. He went and did all the research. He cited all these articles that he refers to in that book. Everything's cited, if you hadn't noticed. And he helped put this book together. It's a great history lesson. It's a great story, and we feel that it needs to really be told.
That's what mostly everybody I talked to about this book last week or so, I have told them I don't recall of reading a book that has, and I guess I have, maybe I just didn't pay attention, but after every chapter, there are scores of footnotes, the documents, the stuff. I mean, every chapter. And then in the back of the book, there's even some more. But what you said about your dad having a good memory, when I was reading this, I mean, he's going back 72 years, somewhere in that neighborhood, and it was like no muss, no fuss. And you talk about someone that has such a good memory. He just indeed has a good memory. And the facts, and I must admit, I never heard about this. Now, I watched the series that was on the History Channel or whatever it was several years ago about the big tycoons, the industrial tycoons. They were a bunch of ruthless rascals. But I never heard about this.
No, this unfortunately was not a part of that. I have recently submitted this to the production company that made the Men Who Built America series for the History Channel, hoping that they'll pick this up and run with it. I think it's a story that needs to be part of our conversation. You know, not only is the tobacco wars. So if you worked for the mining trust or if you worked for the railroad trust and you wanted to fight back or you didn't agree with your wages or you didn't agree with anything, they just shot you dead. They didn't care. The only group that was able to fight back and win against the 1% were the Night Riders in the tobacco wars story that I know of. Now, there were 435 trusts, and I haven't studied them all, so I may be wrong. But theirs is a story of victory because the trusts, the tobacco wars was the leading domino, or one of the leading dominoes in the falling of the trust, or the dismantling of the trusts in the early 1900s. I think December 11th, 1908, I think is when the Standard Oil Trust and the Tobacco Trust came down that same day.
I found that amazing when I read that.
Yeah.
Wow, what's the odds of something like that happening?
So you hear everything in the world about the Standard Oil Trust, but nothing about the Tobacco Trust. The American Tobacco Trust is what it was called.
Right. And I like the fact that it's not just a book of history. It moves you up all the way up to the events that's happening today. I like that.
I think that with the investigations that are going on with the monopolies of today, this is really relevant. What happened with the trusts of the early 1900s? You know, you've got antitrust. Just the other day, I finally heard the word anti-monopoly. I have not heard that yet. I'm wondering, you know, when's that going to sneak out? I copied that up to our Twitter and Facebook feeds. But it's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out. Is it going to be violent like it was back in the tobacco wars era? I really doubt that. You know, and like Jim will tell you tonight, and he's got a much better, thorough understanding of the process than I do. When they dissolve these trusts or these monopolies, all these different companies then go out and build the economy better. They do much more benefit separate as they do under one umbrella. Yeah,
and they bring that good old spirit of competition. I remember when they broke up Ma Bell. Ma Bell, she that's what it was. She was Ma. I mean, there was nobody else. There was just Ma. And when they broke her up, at first everybody thought, the whole world's going to come to an end because you're going to break up Ma Bell and everything's going to fall down, crumble, and that'll be the end of it. But they soon found out that once that monopoly was broken up, splintered, and this company went there, that one went there, and all of a sudden we had competition. And competition was good for the consumer because then the prices were kept relatively low down because this guy didn't want to be higher than that guy and so on and so forth. And the supply and the demand was being met and all that. That's another thing I like about the book because your dad explains all of the bad things that happen when we encounter these monopolies and how it affects the whole economy. And then the good things that can happen when these monopolies are splintered and things. I just hope that our eyes are open to what's really going on in our country, and someone will stand up and say, "Enough is enough. Let's do this. Let's break this mess up and see what really happens." Uh, I love this book.
Thank you.
I really do.
I think they did a great job. I
They
really do.
They did. All these footnotes. They just crack me. I mean, there's so many footnotes that it's unbelievable. You have a. We was talking about that is the only documentation or the only records that scrapbook that's known. Is that right?
I don't know the answer to that for sure. I haven't scoured the countryside to see if somebody else has something. There's, like I said, a group down in Harrodsburg, Kentucky, or Harrodsburg County, Henderson, Kentucky. They were one of the biggest night rider fights took place down there. And there's a guy on YouTube, and I don't recall his name right now. He does a really nice presentation of the events that took place in his neighborhood. So if we were fortunate enough and grateful enough to be able to tell this story on the big screen or in a historical documentary or something like that, I think that his group should be subject matter experts involved in it too.
The other thing that caught my eye was 10,000.
Yeah.
As soon as I saw that number, imagine a lawless militia of 10,000 masked men roaming the cities and countryside. I thought
they didn't all ride together at the same time.
No, but I thought, well, maybe it was 1,000. So I back up and look at it again. And I said, no, that's 10,000.
Yeah,
that was some kind of movement that was put together.
It was. I'll let Jim tell that story to you tonight on how that came to be like that. But they were organized. In his video, he has a video on YouTube as Tobacco, Trust, and Trump as our YouTube channel. And we have a 3-minute video on there. And in there, he talks about the farmers, the bankers, and the lawyers, and the judges, and all the people that were involved in this, and how they were anonymous, and how they kept their anonymity. I'll never know back then because everybody knew everybody. So it is a fun story. It's an interesting story.
Yeah, it sure wasn't like today. In a heartbeat, something will leak. But somehow they kept things under wrap. I don't know how they did it, but they sure did. Wow.
Today, we're complaining about the media having our ears and feeding us the information that, it may or may not be true and accurate. They're feeding us the stories that they want us to hear. Back in the day, the telegraph operators were the ones that were in charge of the media. So all along, all through history, the media's had, been able to keep their fingers on the pulse of the people and feed us what they want us to believe. It happened back then. These stories in here, these newspaper articles, I don't think that any of this is mistaken. I think it's all accurate. And they're good. I'm just enjoying the smell of this old newspaper. Sorry. Excuse me.
But back then when newspapers went into publication, whether it was daily, weekly, whatever it was, they weren't afraid to cause a row with something. I mean, if something wasn't right, not all of them was like that, but there were those that stood their ground. If something wasn't right, uh, they put it in the newspaper, smear it everywhere. Uh, even sometimes uh, knowing that their property could be damaged or they could be killed. Uh, and those were the good old boys and girls that really stood up to things like that. I love that picture with the old Covington Kent
Hmm.
and your dad's book right there. But yeah, I think a lot of people back then wrote what was really happening uh, and exposed some of this corruption. And again, not all of them. Some of them was in people's pockets or uh, whatever. But those people that stood up, and you have those newspaper articles, all those articles. That's like real time stuff. When you read that, it was like real time happening then.
It was, I remember one story that my father tells about his grandfather Kenny. Um, the night riders let you know they were coming to your farm by throwing a swatch of sticks on your front porch. When that was on your front porch that night, you were going to get visited by these people, and the idea was you were either going to quit selling to the trust or they were going to beat you and burn down your barns. Those stories are in here. So Grandpa Kenny went down to Maysville, rode his horse to Maysville that day, and got the army to come back with him. And they sat there on his farm for, I think, a whole year. The minute they packed up and left and went back to Maysville, the night riders came and they burnt down his barns and they horsewhipped him. So they were very patient people.
They were patient, persistent, and
Mhm.
downright ruthless sometimes. Wow. Stephanie, I'm looking forward to being with your dad tonight. This book is intriguing. I'm anxious to hear because he, as a young man, young boy, uh, worked with his grandfather. I think it was his grandfather. He planted that little bit of tobacco and he showed how they did it. I'm anxious to hear about it all, his viewpoints, and he is a well rounded man, very well spoken. Uh, so it ought to be a real delight tonight.
I think you guys are going to have a really good conversation. He's looking forward to it. He was in here a little bit ago and was excited to be on your show tonight at 8 o'clock. So we're looking forward to that. If you would like, or if I may, invite people to follow Tobacco Wars on Facebook and Twitter. It's at Tobacco Wars and Facebook Tobacco Wars. We also have our website. It's thetobaccowars.com, which has some of this history, and a lot of the pictures of the scrapbook are in there too. And again, the YouTube show on Tobacco Trusts and Trump by Jim Rumford. It's a great book. I really am looking forward to getting the right people to help make a movie out of this, because this story really needs to be shared and told.
It'd be a fantastic story. And it led from way back then to right up to now. That's the interesting part. So, ladies and gentlemen, the tobaccowars.com. Go there. It's a neat place. Make sure you go there. We'll post some more about the show tonight at 8 with Mr. Rumford. I'm looking forward to it, and I know that our viewers and our listeners will be looking forward to it too. Stephanie, I thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your time. I know you're a busy lady, but thank you for your time. Thank you for getting in touch with me to make this whole thing happen.
Thank you, George. I'm
And,
grateful for you, and I appreciate you.
and we'll keep in touch. All right.
Absolutely.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends, Romans, and countrymen, Now, it wouldn't be ladies' afternoon at the farm if we just didn't do this. As soon as I find it, there it is.
I'm not here for you to blow your one and only chance. I'm not here to waste my time on yet another bad romance. Now I got hopes for us tonight, for this here thing to turn out right. So from the start, let's get this one thing clear. You should know you're looking at a self-made woman. You should know I got nothing for free. In this life, none of us can know what's coming. So if you wanna be with me, baby, can you see? You gotta make room for a self-made woman like me. Don't expect you to lie down flat, not unless you really want. I'm not after a new doormat or a pretty thing to flaunt. So if you got plans for us tonight, for this here thing to turn out right, from the start, let's get this one thing clear. Oh, you should know you're looking at a self-made woman. You should know I got nothing for free. Oh, in this life, none of us can know what's coming. So if you wanna be with me, baby, can you see? You gotta make room for a self-made woman like me. Could you be that someone I could trust? Tell me, baby. Do I didn't take my defense down like I know I must? Gotta give it a chance. Gotta get out on the floor. Gotta get out on the floor. Gotta get out on the floor and dance. So, oh, you should know. Looking at a self-made woman. Yeah, you should know. I got nothing for free. Oh, in this life, none of us can know what's coming. No. So if you wanna be with me, baby, can you see? You gotta make room for a self-made woman like me. Oh, said you gotta make room for a self-made woman like me. Yeah. Said you gotta make room for a self-made woman like me.
All right. We have to play that every time ladies' afternoon at the farm.
It's a great song.
It is a great song. I see my friend Remus Tucker from the Remus Tucker Band is with us. Remus is a dear friend out of Denver, Colorado. I've known Remus for a number of years, had him on the show a number of times. And just yesterday, Remus and Tracy, the manager of the Remus Tucker Band, we all got together and we're planning some good things here in the future. So you'll be seeing more of Remus and Tracy and all the guys at the band. We've got some great things planned down the road too. So we're just excited. But saying that, and I want to say this before we go, Stephanie, I thank you so very much. I know 2:00 in the afternoon is right about that time where we're trying to get the last minute stuff done before the end of the day and trying to catch up with what you didn't catch up with. I thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. And man, I'm looking forward to talking to Mr. Jim tonight. I just can't hardly wait.
It's my absolute pleasure and honor to be here. Thank you for having me. And I know he's really looking forward to being your guest tonight, too.
And we're going to have you guys come back and
Okay.
as you go along your journey to keep us up on what's going on.
We'll be happy to. Thank you, George.
No, sometimes you just don't got it right. But anyhow, that's all part of being live. You get all those blurps. Cut yourself off. Don't turn your mic on. I could write a book about what's happened over the years. It's funny now. It wasn't so funny when it happened, but it's funny now. Wow. All right, ladies and gentlemen, when you hear this, you know we're going to wrap it up. We're on our way out of here. Charlie, he's over there running that board. He can be. But Charlie and I are going to skip out of here for a while. We've got some things we got to take care of, get ready for the next show. But please join me, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. We will have Mr. Jim Rumford here with us tonight, the author of the book, Tobacco, Trust, and Trump, America's Forgotten War. Thrilling. You won't want to miss it. Pass the word, spread it around. There'll be some more things that's posted up on the show page pertaining to that. So make sure that you stay tuned in, plugged in, whatever other things there is. Jump on those devices. Tell people near, far, and wide that the George Espenlaub Show will be returning tonight, live streaming right here at 8 p.m. in this place. Sometimes I get radio and this stuff all mixed up together, and I'm just going to have to bear with me and forgive me. But listen, whether you're down the street, around the corner, across America, or somewhere around this great big world, thank you for stopping by this afternoon. And remember, you can go and listen to this and see it all over again. It'll stay right here on Facebook, the George Espenlaub Show page. You can jump up there to YouTube and see it there, and we'll put it over on our blog at theespenblog.com. So it'll be smeared everywhere, so you can continually watch it. So tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, come back and join me. And I know you will be delighted, and I will be happy that you did. So whatever you're going through, whether you're on the mountaintop or down in the deep, dark valley, I want you to know we care about you. We really do. We're concerned about our listeners. We like to know what's going on. Thank you for your support. Thank you for all the kind words. Thank you for your support over the years. You've just been marvelous. And we're meeting more and more new friends, moving onward and upward. So, until tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, This is George Espenlaub and all the gang here at the Funny Farm saying, God bless you. May he keep you right in the center. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you, George.
I'll talk at you later, all right?
I'll be here tonight with Jim.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Have a good day.
You too.
Bye.